Every time an American politician dies, every news outlet looks like this. Breaking: warlord remembered for charity work in his passing. Critics recall his genocidal crusade, but his family asked for respect this time. Let's take a look at some of Jimmy Carter's later in life W's, but didn't have the stones to do it while he was president. Jimmy Carter on Palestine.
The word apartheid is exactly accurate. You know, this is an area that's occupied by two powers. They're now completely separated. The Palestinians can't even ride on the same roads that the Israelis have created or built in Palestinian territory. The Israelis never see a Palestinian except the Israeli soldiers. The Palestinians never see an Israeli except at a distance, except the Israeli soldiers. So within Palestinian territory, they're absolutely and totally separated, much worse than they were in South Africa, by the way. And the other thing is, the other definition of apartheid is one side dominates the other.
He is right. He is right. When people talk about, oh, he's such a humanitarian, oh, he had such a good take on Palestine, and like, you know, oh, he was building homes. Yeah, you know when he did that? After he was no longer president. All of like the nice things he said, and you know, the correct takes he had, and the good humanitarian work he did was after he was president. His presidency, and I think this is more of a comes with the territory thing. Him as president, dog shit. It's like he was trying to, you know, absolve himself of his sins from being president. Like his whole life afterwards was just trying to, you know, cleanse himself. East Timor sends their heartfelt condolences. Yep. I mean, he has been entirely whitewashed by like the Western media. Jimmy Carter's lack of actually addressing not only the underlying conditions of the American people, but also, you know, undermining the global neoliberal footprint, the imperialist coverage of America across the globe, did nothing to undermine that, right? Yeah, he was a coward. I mean, a coward or a, you know, evil person, the way every American president is, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, he didn't do anything to stop the rampant austerity that eventually the Reagan administration was able to seize on and then accelerate. The media has entirely whitewashed him to the point where...
You must be Hank.
You ran our country. America.
Hank,
America.
I understand you told your father you hate him.
Hate's a strong word, Mr. President. That's why I used it. Yep, hate my dad.
You may say you hate your daddy, but I seem to recall the Egyptians once said they would never accept Israel's right to exist. I think we all know how that turned out. Now why don't we go...
Mike Judge, every now and then, like, he really fucking zeroes in on a good goddamn joke.
Inside and talk things over.
I'm not going in there. I hate the man.
What is this? Oh yeah, what is Felix saying? Iconic Jimmy Carter moments. Uberizing international warfare. Abandoning New Deal policies in favor of a deregulatory race to the bottom. Inviting Lash to the White House and pleading, please tell me what to do. And Lash going, I don't know, just don't give up. Felix from Chapo is probably the biggest Jimmy Carter hater I know. I don't know anyone in politics, right, who is a political commentator or is like a relevant personality today who is as much of a hater of Jimmy Carter as Felix is. Least racist 100-year-old Georgian white man.
At this point, the U.S. is a freshly minted world power. We had just elected our first black president and are up to our necks in nukes. Polio is kicking our ass back home, but our military and weapons technology is geared up, ready to fight communism everywhere, all the time, forever. Canada, however, is not as up to speed. So when it suffered one of the world's first nuclear accidents, they asked America to help contain it. To disassemble the unstable nuclear reactor, the U.S. military enlisted an elite team of nuclear engineers led by 28-year-old Navy Lieutenant Jimmy Carter. Due to how radioactive the reactor's core was, each crew member could only go in for short amounts of time and were told they might not be able to have kids after. The former president, now known as the sweet old guy who fixed houses, was one of the men lowered into the unstable reactor to disassemble it, exposing himself to more radiation than the human body can safely withstand within a year. The risky, high-stakes operation was a success and avoided a much larger nuclear accident. And what's more impressive is that this isn't the ballsiest thing the former president has done. Jimmy Carter is the only president to date to call Israel an apartheid state and was one of the first major politicians to advocate for Palestinian rights, even going to a protest against the Israeli evictions of Palestinians in East Jerusalem in 2010.
What is being done to the Palestinians now is horrendous in their own territory by the occupying powers, which is Israel. They've taken away all the basic human rights of the Palestinians.
Carter published a book called Peace, Not Apartheid, arguing that Israel's occupation of Palestine was a central obstacle to peace in the region, fully understanding the backlash it would draw. He was called anti-Semitic and a bigot, condemned by AIPAC, and 14 Carter Center staff members resigned. Since then, the book and its positions have been largely vindicated. This is not to say that Jimmy Carter was perfect or that being pro-Palestine is a secret to outliving all your ops. This is to say that Jimmy Carter was not a radical guy, and advocating for peace is not a radical policy, even for a president. The first step to stop Israel's war on Gaza is a ceasefire, and the first step to a ceasefire is an arms embargo, which is what the Not Another Bomb campaign is organizing to enact by building a democratic anti-war coalition party leadership can't ignore. To learn how to get involved, click the link in our bio.
Here, let's take a look at how the media is glazing.
Rich, we go now to Michigan. Michigan GOP Congressman and incoming House Education Committee Chair Tim Walberg, sir.
Well, it's good to be with you. And yes, this is a momentous occasion. I think we've looked toward it for some time now, but when it actually happens, you realize that while you may disagree with a person politically or in policy, yet you respect the fact that he was willing to step up. He was willing to make decisions and move forward. And he had some real successes, as was just mentioned in your prior interview. The last time, and really the only time
I love how it's always vague. I love how it's always so vague, the way that they glaze.
Well, listen, you may disagree with this person, you may have some criticisms, but you have to respect their successes. He's had many W's, including but not limited to the W's.
It's like, do you want to be, what decisions, what successes, can you be specific? Because even Fox News doesn't dare to do the, rip bozo, crab rave, like, oh, we have to be respectful in someone's death. No, the fuck we don't. They're dead. What are they gonna do? What are they gonna haunt me? What are they gonna rise up from the grave, amass the armies of, Habitat for Humanity workers that died on job sites due to lack of, proper regulatory oversight? Interesting to note, though, that Carter was a political pariah after he lost to Reagan because, in a large way, he was perceived as a weak president. I'd forgotten he went on TV and said, "I'm not sure what to do," and asked for resignations for his entire cabinet. Yeah. Carter, being too much of a coward, led to Ronald Reagan. And this is why I always insist, why I always push. It's not simply a matter of vision. It's not simply a matter of, hey, you have a good policy agenda. Do you have the political will to do it? Are you willing to undermine the industries that are reliant on it? Are you willing to cut people? Are you willing to stab people in the back? Are you willing to throw possibly your own fucking safety on the line to do this? And Carter was not. Yeah, he was afraid to be pro-worker. And this is at a time when women just got the ability to have their own bank accounts. This is only a few years after the Civil Rights Act passed. This was a period of time when credit was entering the American economy. We started doing credit because austerity was already creeping in, and the buying power of Americans because of, the Yom Kippur War and OPEC was, raising the cost of living, especially when it came to oil and gas costs. So we did credit. Yeah, thank you, Visa, MasterCard. Carter walked so Kamala could run. True. But once again, every time a politician dies in America, it's this. Warlord remembered for charity work in his passing. Critics recall his genocidal crusade, but his family asked for respect at this time.